Spoiler alert for episode 6 of Ahsoka. Grand Admiral Thrawn, Ezra Bridger, Night Sisters, new galaxy, and who the hell is calling to Baylan Skoll? This episode yet again is another reason as to why Dave Filoni should just be in charge of this whole damn thing they call Lucasfilm. But this new galaxy has so many hidden little details that you might have missed, so smash a like on this video and let's break this all down. Episode 6 is titled Far, Far Away, of course in reference to a galaxy far, far away, and it opens with the Purrgil traveling through hyperspace. Now this looks a little bit different than the hyperspace we know. It looks stunning. This Ahsoka show from the start has just looked way better than most other Star Wars Disney Plus shows. The time and effort was really put into making every single scene look spectacular. But inside the Purrgil's mouth is Ahsoka Tano and Hu Yang on their way to this new galaxy. Ahsoka says she remembers hearing stories when she was at the Jedi Temple as a youngling about distant galaxies that you could travel to, but they seemed more like fairy tales. And Hu Yang, being the one who taught Ahsoka and the other younglings these stories, of course still has these stories in his databanks. And I believe at this point with Ahsoka the White, I think she is going to start up her own kind of Jedi Temple with Jacen Syndulla and Sabine and maybe even Ezra Bridger. And they already got the droid that can teach all the younglings all they need to know, especially how to build a lightsaber. I also think Hu Yang being an important character in this show is foreshadowing Ezra Bridger crafting a new lightsaber with the help of Hu Yang. But Ahsoka tells him that she didn't tell Hera Syndulla everything that she heard in that Force Echo in the last episode. She knows that Sabine willingly went with Baylan and she didn't tell that to Hera. Hu Yang says maybe it was her only choice. And Ahsoka then says, we gotta pass the time, so why don't you just tell me those fairy tales that you used to tell us as younglings? And that's the last we see of Ahsoka and Hu Yang in this episode. We then see Sabine wake up as a prisoner inside of the Eye of Sion as they travel through hyperspace as well. They have over a day's head start on Ahsoka and Hu Yang, so they're definitely going to get there a lot earlier than them. But Sabine sees Baylan and says, we had a deal, and Baylan keeps his mouth shut. He walks onto the bridge of the ship and talks to Morgan Elsbeth and Shin and tells them that he still thinks there's a use for Sabine Wren. As the Eye of Sion finally exits hyperspace, and again, this looks fantastic. Baylan speaks out loud, but is really just informing the audience that this is the end of the migrating route for the Purrgil. This is where they come to die. This is Peridia. And as they get closer to the planet, we see that the ring around the planet is made up of old corpse of Purrgil. They take a shuttle down to the surface where they see the remains or the ruins of what used to be an old Night Sister kingdom. The Night Sisters originated from here and went to the Star Wars galaxy to settle on Dathomir. There used to be so many Night Sisters on this planet, and they seem to have all died off except for 3 or 4. They land, and we see for the first time in live action Night Sisters that we saw in the Clone Wars. Now, these aren't the same Night Sisters from the Clone Wars. Those ones are dead, of course, but they have the same look and cloaks. Morgan Elsbeth asks where Thrawn is, and they say he's on his way. Then they look over at Sabine and say she reeks of Jedi. Now this is pretty damn cool. If Night Sisters can actually smell the Force on beings, we really don't know the full extent of the Night Sisters' powers, and this is really just giving us a glimpse at what they can do as they take Sabine as their prisoner. We then get Baylan trying to explain to Shin what's going on here, and honestly, Baylan's just giving us more questions than answers. He says this is a land of dreams and madness, children's stories coming true. He talks about his time at the Jedi Temple and how the Jedi fell and the Empire rose and the Empire fell and now the New Republic rises and is probably going to fall to Thrawn as well. It's an endless cycle and Baylan wants to end the cycle. We still don't know what Baylan's plan is. It seems like later on in the episode that it is to stay in this new galaxy, but he claims here that it's to start from the beginning and stop the endless cycle. We then see Sabine in her cell, and she's trying to open the door with the Force, and that's when the whole room around her begins to shake. And we get to see, for the first time in live action, Grand Admiral Thrawn's iconic ship, the Chimera. This is the same ship that Ezra and Thrawn disappeared in Season 4 of Rebels with the Purrgil wrapped up around it. And you can tell with all the damage that was taken, it's been covered by gold. This ship looks so damn cool. but it lands on top of Baylan, Shin, Morgan Elsbeth, and the Night Sisters, and we get our first look at Thrawn's undead army of stormtroopers held together by Night Sister magic. You can see all the little details with the gold and the red cloths holding their armor together, but we see a character named Enoch. Now, I'm sure many people are going to be making speculation videos about who's under this mask, but I actually don't think it's anybody, or at least anybody of significance. I think this is just the commander of the army. And in walks Lars Mikkelsen as Grand Admiral Thrawn. The big blue meanie has finally made it to live action, and he looks and sounds spectacular. Don't know how he kept that suit so white after all these years, but maybe he found a dry cleaner. The Night Sisters warn Thrawn that they brought a prisoner, talking about Sabine of course, and the Night Sisters sense that this is a loose end in their plan. Thrawn then gets introduced to Baylan and Shin, not knowing who they are just by first glance. But when Morgan Elsbeth introduces them and calls him Baylan, he says, "Oh, General Baylan of the Jedi Order?" This is again Thrawn just being the badass that he is, knowing everybody, knowing everything 10 steps ahead, and remembering a young Jedi, Baylan Skoll, from the Clone Wars. Morgan tells Thrawn that the prisoner is Sabine Wren, and he says Sabine will be a great use for them. Sabine then gets brought before Grand Admiral Thrawn, and he just pretty much thanks her for allowing him to come back to the galaxy, pretty much pinning all of this on Sabine, which I mean, it kind of is her fault. She did hand the map over to Baylan. But Thrawn also says that he's going to keep Baylan's word and allow Sabine to go find Ezra, because Ezra has eluded Thrawn for the last 10 years. They give Sabine one of these wolves, and no, this is not a Loth wolf, it's a new species from this new galaxy. But they also give Sabine her old armor, her lightsaber, and her blasters. And Enoch warns her that there are nomads wandering in the wasteland, and that she probably won't survive. We then see the bad guys watching Sabine leave, as Thrawn tells Baylan and Shin to go after her. Sabine's going to lead them right to Ezra so that he can finally take out Ezra Bridger. He's been looking for him for 10 years and hasn't been able to catch up. But if anybody can find him, it's Sabine Wren. Sabine's wolf stops and runs away as Sabine gets attacked by these bandits. Now these bandits look a lot like samurai, and this is not the first time that Dave Filoni has a samurai-like feel to Star Wars. But after a pretty cool fight sequence, Sabine ends up beating these bandits, after she has to pull out her lightsaber to do so. We then cut back to the Chimera where the stormtroopers are loading something on, and we don't know what's in these crates, but I think it's going to definitely be important. Then we probably get what's the most important scene in this whole entire episode, where Morgan Elsbeth and Grand Admiral Thrawn are looking at a map. Now this map is most likely the Star Wars galaxy we know and love, but as you look closer, some planets are highlighted, there's some lines between the planets, and I think this is going to be extremely important. We then get what's a very Rebels-like scene, with this wolf trying to come back and be friends with Sabine. And Sabine is playing hard to get because, of course, the wolf ran away from her when times got rough. No pun intended. But the wolf smells something, and Sabine hops on his back as they go riding through the wasteland. They stop at a river, and the wolf starts to drink, and Sabine realizes that he just wanted to drink some water. Then he begins to smell this rock, and this rock comes to life, and it's some turtle. This species is called the Nati, and when Sabine gets real close, the little guy points to her shoulder where the rebellion symbol is. This little creature's wearing a very similar necklace with the same symbol on it. And when Sabine mentions Ezra Bridger, 10 more of these guys come out. They begin to walk towards their village, and this is when we cut back to Baylan and Shin, who have just come upon the dead samurai marauders that Sabine took out earlier. Baylan again is very mysterious in this scene as they look around this desolate wasteland, and he says there's no future back in that old galaxy. And Shin says, well, is there one here in this crazy wasteland? And he says this was once the great witch kingdom of the Dothamiri. Shin says Thrawn and the others seem pretty eager to leave this place. We probably should too. And Baylan says perhaps they're fleeing a power greater than their own. And he says, something calls to me. What the hell is calling to Baylan? What is he referring to? What is this greater power that he's been mentioning since episode 4? Something bigger is going on here, and we don't know anything about it yet. But Baylan does. This is going to be a huge thing coming in these last 2 episodes of this show, whether or not Shin and Baylan stay on this planet, and what the hell this greater thing is. But we go back to Sabine as these little turtle creatures brought her back to their village. And this is where we get, for the first time in live action, Ezra Bridger. And as a huge Star Wars Rebels fan, oh my goodness, this was one of the greatest reveals, up there with honestly Luke Skywalker in Mando Season 2 for me. He looks great, sounds great, and Iman Esfandi is Ezra Bridger. He honestly seems pretty excited to see Sabine, of course, after not seeing her for 10 years, but Sabine is hiding a lot from him. He's very excited to go home, but Sabine hasn't told him yet that they have no way to get home. But I guess he'll just have to find out in the next episode, as they have to help these little turtle creatures pack up because they are always on the move. And the episode ends with Thrawn talking to the Night Sisters as they warn him of another Jedi on her way, of course referring to Ahsoka Tano. Thrawn looks over at Morgan Elsbeth and said, "I thought you told me that Ahsoka was dead." And Thrawn actually pokes some fun at the sequel trilogy as he mentions that death and resurrection are common deceptions for the Jedi and the Night Sisters, poking fun at nobody's ever truly gone and somehow Palpatine returned. But Thrawn tells Morgan Elsbeth to kill every space whale that comes out of hyperspace on approach and turns to the other Night Sisters and asks for their help. And the Night Sisters' response is the thread of destiny demands it. What the hell is the thread of destiny? This episode was amazing. A 9 out of 10 for me, but of course rank it out of 10 in the comments section below. Give me your ranking out of 10. So much going on, from the introduction of Grand Admiral Thrawn and Ezra Bridger into live action, to this whole entire new galaxy just being explored on this one planet to start, the Chimera, the undead army of stormtroopers, it all is coming to fruition. But tell me what you think about this episode in the comment section below. Smash a like on this video if you liked it, hit subscribe and hit that bell so you get notified every time I post a video. We go live on this channel every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, so don't miss out on any of that by hitting that subscribe. And if you want more, go check out this video I just did about the possibility of Leia Organa being in the Ahsoka show. Because yes, I do think this is still possible in maybe episode 7 or 8.